on this idea of shrinking around others, holding yourself back, feeling like you could do more, you could be more, but there's something that isn't quite clicking. This is an issue that affects almost everybody that I've worked with, and I'm sure it's the same with you,
Yeah.
which is it's almost like a weird insidious feeling, rather, where you're like, oh, like I am like kind of doing pretty well, but maybe I'm holding back socially in a group. Happens a lot around groups, I've noticed, right? Like
Mm,
when someone's comfortable, when they're around somebody one on one, it's much easier to maybe open up, express themselves, come up with ideas, all that kind of stuff. But when it's in a group, I guess because there's more of a quality that's needed of leadership and ideas around leadership, can be quite stifling. But for people that feel like they have to shrink in that moment, I guess I just want to start off the podcast by saying, like, it doesn't have to be that way. We were not born that way. There is a way in which you
yeah.
can unlearn that. And I was just curious what comes up for you when I say that.
Yeah. Well, I even have a curiosity of taking it even one step back because
Hmm.
what I've noticed is some people are even at the stage where they're not seeing it as a shrinking, but they'll be wondering, why can't I do this task? Why do I feel so much procrastination?
Right.
Why do I like not want to go and do this?
Hmm.
And then they push through it or they don't. And, so many times someone's come in and thinking they're wanting, like working with a split ego, a part just keeps getting in the way, it keeps doesn't want to do it. Then the more we dig in, it's more often than not that it's almost like if they were to do that and get that success, or in that group be that expressive person, or whatever it may be, there's almost a sense of they shouldn't do that. They can't do that. They don't
Hmm.
want to
They
show
shouldn't do
someone
that.
up. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
mean,
That comes up a lot,
it's
doesn't it?
really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting just to notice that first part because so often we think it's a split ego or we think that we're just procrastinating because we're lazy or we don't want to do it. But
Hmm.
sometimes it's just that we feel like we shouldn't. We feel like I don't know, that we can't show other people up. Or by doing that, we would be showing other people up.
Hmm.
And I suppose what arises for me is just even the idea of the introject projection kind of seesaw, where
Right.
very often the introject supports the projection,
Oh,
right?
tell me about it. Yeah.
And that's always a good fun one where we're judging
As if
someone
one wasn't
else.
enough, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
now we have to have two. That's always fun.
Yeah.
And and noticing, oh, when I'm seeing someone else like really show up,
Mm.
really, just be expressive. I
Yeah.
mean, how many times I've felt it, I know many, many people have felt it, of
Yeah.
a subtle judgment. What are you doing?
Stifled.
Stepping out.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Being so
Yeah.
out there, being so expressive.
Yeah.
And then we find that we've shut that down in ourselves.
I mean, I can't tell you how much that used to relate to me, right? And that was one of my big challenges. Um, like whenever people would take up space, I think is a really good way of putting it. It's almost like whenever you feel somebody taking up space, you realize that you haven't been doing that when you could have been, and it makes you annoyed at
Yeah.
that person. Or there's another reaction that you can have where you get really complimentary to that person, where you're like, oh wow, that's
Mm,
so amazing. Like they're this big, like
yeah.
wise father or mother or older sister, older brother, this whatever it is, which seems less insidious in on the kind of first place. But in some ways, I mean, I've just been doing a couple of videos about this around the difference between shadow insecurities and shadow blind spots. I would say this is kind
Mm,
of a bit more of an instance around a shadow blind spot because when you're
yeah.
complimentary to someone and you're positive towards someone, at least for me and for most people that I've seen, you don't necessarily register that as something to work on.
Mm,
But when it's at the expense of putting yourself down, oh, I could never be like that. Oh, that just isn't me. Like
yeah,
any of those kind of things, that's when you're actually still projecting power, but in a complementary way, which is a projection. And to come back to as if one wasn't bad enough, now there's two, I can imagine that's incredibly frustrating for people. And it was for me, and it is for a lot of my clients. But it always comes down to introjection makes us shrink because we have judgments around this thing or about ourselves, which make us feel small. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, what a projection is doing is whatever empowerment we did have is now being projected onto the other person. So it's like being hit by a double whammy of feeling inadequate, feeling not worthy. Like I just literally just now got off a call with a client who had this introjection around inadequacy, around sexuality and expressing himself sexually and that kind of stuff. And it wasn't just an introjection, it was the inadequacy, but then he would project powers on other guys, because he's a guy, that wasn't like that, that were able
mm,
to own, their desires or move things forward with a woman that they were interested in, all that kind of stuff. He had both of them. But we had to deal with the introjection first, and then that projection naturally got re-owned. It
yeah,
sometimes happens the other way around, right? But sometimes it does. But most of the time, I usually think that it comes introjection first.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that's definitely one way. What can be interesting though is when you deal with a projection first,
Mm,
especially if you're not sure what the introject was,
yeah,
you can almost when you're trying to re-own it, and then you realize you get bumping up against something,
yeah,
and then you get to find the projection. I find that more for golden projection, like you were
mm,
sharing with when you're seeing positive traits.
yeah,
Like starting with projection work can be really fascinating there
yeah,
because I remember I had a client and he had this person in mind that was just so amazing, so wonderful. And when he was sharing about all these traits of a client, I'm
I
like,
know which way this is going. Yeah,
that sounds like you.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I feel like I see that in all of you, in
yeah,
exactly how you operate.
yeah,
And I just asked him, what would it be like to just notice those traits in yourself, if they
yeah,
are in you?
yeah,
And he was like, oh, wow, that is mine. It
yeah,
was just beautiful golden projection re-owning.
hmm,
And then a little bit of kind of resistance emerged, and that's where the introject was.
yeah.
And it went through that process. But it's so fascinating to see how
How did he
very
show up
often,
differently after that, by the way, with this woman that he was, or this person he was interested in? Did you say it was a woman or romantic?
no, no, no. So this was a guy who's runs sales teams, right?
Ah,
So it
okay.
was in more of a business context.
Yeah,
And he was looking up to another kind of sales leader, someone who was leading, who was a little bit older, like a decade older,
yeah,
and was leading, teams at um, an even higher level. And yet he put all of these ideas about him, that he's got this real aura, real confidence, this stewardship was a really nice word, this um, deep compassion. And yet when he was able to see that in himself, he was able to see that he'd been running teams that way often, and people in his teams have been saying that about him anyway. But what was really great is not only were his traits kind of deepened, but he also got to feel that sense of fullness internally. Right, he got to feel that real sense of confidence internally and actually allow those traits to support him as well. Right, that compassion to support him,
mm, mm,
that leadership to support himself. And so it created more of a wholeness and a completion that then led to when he was working with his teams, that was just more of a smoothness with how he was operating. And when it came to working with some new opportunities that he was getting with some teams that were going for goals were a little bit higher than he was used to,
Okay.
it felt like, oh, that's very much here for me. You
Wow.
know, instead of that's just for this guy, that's actually mine as well. That's right
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
and I can go for it.
That leads to an interesting point. First of all, thank you for laying out that transformation. That when you really look up to somebody, when you pedestalize them, you actually make it your fantasy, you alienate yourself from it.
Mm.
So I work with a lot of guys. I know you do as well. I think maybe you have a bit more of an even split. And porn is a big issue for them. Although it is actually becoming more and more of an issue with women as well. And it makes me think, it reminds me of that because I've never met a guy who's consistently watching porn or someone who's consistently watching porn who's satisfied in their dating and relationships life or their sex life as well or
Mm.
sexuality. Like fully, really satisfied, present, all that kind of stuff. It's because if you make something your fantasy, then you're pushing yourself away. It's almost like creating a boundary between it. So in your example, like, of course that's gonna be uncomfortable. That's gonna be for him. Because when you make this person up here and yourself, you might not even be putting yourself down, but you are by contrast, because contrasting that you're putting them up and you're keeping yourself there, you're like, oh yeah, that's not for me. I shouldn't
Mm.
be doing that. That's out of my comfort zone. So that's
Yeah,
why I think it's funny how we talked about how this came up for us. Those complementary shadow projections, those golden projections, they get overlooked almost always online, I've seen, and with coaches and that kind of
yeah,
stuff, because there's no negative feeling necessarily associated with it, at least on the surface. But as soon as you look into it, that's just like a massive form of disempowerment that people go through,
yeah,
right? And then
yeah,
it's one of those ones that they can get confused about for years. Like, why is this happening? Like, I'm not thinking anything bad. Like, there's this old adage, which is kind of true, which is successful people always try and encourage you, whereas people who aren't successful always try and tear you down. I understand where that's coming from, but if you take that kind of messaging that's quite simplistic, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm always supportive of people, are you being supportive, or are you being supportive at the expense of alienating yourself from that person's success, from that person's
mm.
their presence, how they show up in the world?
Yeah,
It's a bit of an interesting thought experiment, at least on my end.
yeah. And you know what's interesting is just taking a subtle step back when you were talking about the dating and the porn and that sort of a thing. What actually was arising for me, which I think is another curious topic in terms of projections and introjects, of the gender split that can happen,
Mm.
where it's not even necessarily like the I want that. Sometimes in dating, we can really golden project on the other gender.
Oh,
They have qualities that we don't have,
yeah.
you know, and then we make stories around that, right? That we
Hmm.
complete each other, that we come into divine union, and we can make it really spiritual and sound really nice. But at the core of it, there's a split of a lack of wholeness
Yeah.
that's going to come because of this person.
Yeah.
And
I'm
whether
going to
we
be
do
in
that,
the divine feminine. I'm going to be in the divine masculine. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
both, darling. Yeah, both,
yeah,
mate.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Whether we're doing that at a level where it's like, you know, more pick-uppy in dating and I'm going to get them, or you're
Yeah.
doing it at the tantric divine union,
Yeah.
if it's coming from a
The
split
same blind spot.
inside, it's the same thing,
Yeah.
you know, and it's,
And
I
that's why
work
those
more,
communities project on those on both of each other,
yeah,
right, as well. Because
yeah,
they both
oh, for sure.
they know there's a blind spot, but they don't own it in themselves. Classic projection. That's so
Yeah.
interesting.
And I remember Kim, who's a mentor to us both in
Yeah.
different times in our lives.
Yeah.
He
Good
would say
Bartek.
that people marry their golden projection and divorce their shadow projection. Isn't that so
Yeah,
true, you know?
it's super true. Yeah. Like you're like,
uh,
oh, you just changed so much. It's like, no, they've been the same person, but your projections
yeah,
have changed so much, right? Like they've
yeah,
always been that person that's capable of lying, of cheating,
mm,
of maybe being a bit forceful, not listening to the other person. They've always been capable of that. It's just that when you met them in your time of life, you golden projected, they're good. They're good qualities. And whenever you're caught in a shadow pattern, it's always like blinders on. Like it's very, like
yeah.
you're not seeing with breadth. You're seeing very specifically, like this is what is happening. Like so it'll make you ignore that kind of stuff. I mean, how many times has that happened to people, to me and you,
Uh,
right? Like where,
all the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
back in Budapest when we were living together. I
Oh,
mean, every Friday that was happening.
yeah.
And yeah, we have some funny stories that we could probably share from those time periods. I mean, I remember. I mean, let's. I'll go out on a limb. I mean, what's funny? What used to happen for me is obviously beauty was a big one. Like you project beauty and a certain type of femininity, whether that's
Mm,
how they show up in presence. It can also be sexuality as well. It kind of oscillated between those two. For me, I mean, what is that a clear indicator when you let those two things kind of shield your view of them? Well, it means that for me as a man who shows up as in a much more masculine polarity, that part of the feminine or the anima is like a Greek word for feminine spirit, and the animus is the Greek word for masculine spirit, so masculine feminine polarity. There was all this femininity that person, that woman in front of me represented, that I was suppressing or not seeing in myself. Now, some people could get
yeah.
afraid of that. I know me and you definitely would have got afraid of that a few years ago, right? Even
Yeah.
just saying that. But it's in that contrast of embracing all of it that you become more polarizing. You become
Yeah.
more yourself. You become higher impact of an energy without it being overbearing. It's when
Yeah.
your presence becomes more whole and solid because you have that contrast between masculine and feminine. So
Yeah.
when I was able to see that, another thing that was hard for me to see, I would interesting to get your thoughts on your stories from our Budapest Chronicles. Another interesting one was seeing like the beauty that I had. Like guys, you could
Mm,
say, oh, they have a presence. Maybe you could even say they're ruggedly handsome, attractive, even.
yeah.
But the actual word of beauty or sexiness, right? I mean, if this was me a few years ago, you would have lost me at this point, right?
Just
Which is
alienating half our
yeah,
audience, but that's okay.
alienating everyone. That's all right. And when you realize, wait, the reason why I like that in somebody else to the point where I'm making it something which it's not, making it special, not saying that it isn't special, but making it special. That's the distinction. Like it's all
Yeah.
special, like we're all unique. We all have these amazing parts within ourselves, but it's not special like I need to make a special deal out of it. That's
Mm,
what I mean.
yeah.
That's coming because I'm not owning that about myself. I wasn't owning that
Yeah.
about myself. I was still struggling with all this stuff around worthiness and attractiveness and whether I was doing the right thing in order to get this girl to like me, all of the classic kind of things that you can fall into when you're a young man and also a young woman as well,
Yeah.
but it shows up in a different way, I would say,
Yeah.
at least if we're going by the gender stereotypes from what we've seen in our life. Like that was the part that speaks to what we were just speaking about, which
Yeah.
was not owning that and being like, oh, wait, that's actually me. But what was your
Yeah.
experience of that time period, or if there's another time period that's coming up for you?
I mean, it's evolving for me all the time.
Yeah.
And it's probably for you too, where I'm like, oh, that's mine. And I've just been projecting that.
Mm,
But Budapest is a good kind of representation.
mm,
And I know for me, the feeling when it's the golden projection, especially in that type of situation with a woman, there was always be this feeling of a pull, but it's like almost a pulling me over. It's kind of like pulling me out of me and being so in awe of someone else beyond me, right? Whereas instead of a tone of appreciation and oh, they're really amazing, it's pulling me over. I lose myself in it. And I think the traits that one of them was actually joy, right? Joy and kind of flow, which I really wanted in myself. And I wouldn't let myself have. I'd let myself just be very structured, very much, we're going towards this, we're going towards a goal, right? But
Hmm.
when it was just really free flowing joy, I was very like, I'd push that out onto women,
Yeah.
right? And then I would always look for someone who was like that.
I remember you saying like something that sparks an idea in me. You remember you saying around this time, like, or something along the line of, this is when you uncovered the shadow. It was like, oh, they're allowed to do that, but I'm not allowed to do that. It was something like
Mm,
that. Like they're
yeah.
allowed to be
I
like
mean,
that.
isn't that like a pure summary of the introject projection split?
Yeah,
Right. If I'm
yeah.
not allowed to do that, so I'm just going to project that onto them. They're allowed to be joyful, beautiful, sensual.
Yeah.
And I'm not allowed to be like that. I'm going to
No.
put that out. And they're probably doing the same to me.
Yeah.
And, at that time, it's like I'm going to bolster up these traits so that they think I'm amazing and
Mm.
they project their whatever onto me. But what was really interesting, and you mentioned it earlier, of when you integrate that, there is more of a charisma in air quotations or a punchiness to how you're able to show up, right? There's more of a natural expression.
Hmm.
And part of the thing that emerged for me was I just needed it less. There was just
Mm.
less of something out there that was actually to get. There was less of something out there that would make me whole in any way.
Yeah.
And so the process just became fun. It just
Yeah.
became more enjoyable to just share me and see if there's connection there
Yeah.
and to see what emerges organically. Whereas before I was like trying to make it happen because there's
Yeah.
something out there that I need. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I needed something out there
What I saw
to
from
be
my
complete,
view
to be whole.
when this exact process that you talked about was going through with you, is before, I mean, you were getting a lot of results, like going on dates. You weren't like dating toxic girls, you know? Like you were dating people who were cool and they were nice and they were fun to hang out with. But when you were going through this process and these kind of switches was happening, what it felt was like a lot of the franticness. I wouldn't say neediness because you weren't like necessarily needy, but it was almost like a step away from that pushing energy, just melted
Yeah,
away. And when that happened, the quality of your connections, first of all, became way better. They became much more aligned. And that's actually when you met your long-term girlfriend who you're with now, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that was definitely a big shift because I think when you break that down in many ways, it just becomes less about seeing this golden person and trying to
Mm.
get them, trying to make it happen.
Yeah,
And you kind of move more organically into, I suppose, healthy attachment. But
yeah,
even within this relationship, it's almost 3 years now. And at the beginning, while I was more secure, I was still more up and down, more, needing to make it happen, needing to make it work, really like sensitive to changes in
yeah. It's a very chaotic
her
internal world,
experience.
isn't it?
Yeah, like is she like really needing her to be so obviously in love with me for me
Ah,
to kind of feel okay,
this brings back so many
you know?
memories and so many of my own
Yeah.
stuff as well. Yeah,
And
yeah,
if there was a problem, I'd be like, what's up? And we'd have to like move through it to get back to the perfect thing. Because we were both also projecting on each other a little bit.
yeah. It
We
takes
were
two to
both
tango.
needing that such crazy version of what we experienced thought was love. Really,
Mm.
there was definitely love there, but it was much more of this almost high energy. There's not really a word for it, but it was like a exaggerated version of what we assumed love was, right? And we
Yeah,
felt like we really needed it. to both be okay. And if there was a
Yeah.
problem, we would both have to work through and fix it together. Whereas as time went on and as we both worked on different shadows and projections and introjects, there's just more of an okayness with the flows of relationship
Mm.
and the flows of life, because sometimes things are happening and you're just both less connected because you're working on different parts of your career
Yeah.
or different things are happening, you're traveling. And so there's more of a settling. But I'm curious because I know that you also had similar experiences in re-owning aspects of yourself. And I'm wondering what that looked like from someone who's been more in the dating game for the last few years and evolving within that from maybe of the hectic Budapest that we both experienced to more of
Mm.
a secure version that's happening now.
Yeah. Budapest was super hectic. I had it in a not like wanting to be perfect. Like it was not like a perfection thing, like wanting it to be really good and having that to be the case. It was actually a lot around safety. Now, I would
Mm,
overcompensate with that by trying to be like strong or maybe even a little bit abrasive, and it came off as a bit overbearing, to say the least. But it was around like feeling safe with this other person, feeling safe in whatever relationship we would have. And I guess I didn't feel safe because I was doing all these projections on the other person. And because I was being around the thing which I was demonizing in myself.
yeah.
And it would be create like a real barrier between us. And something which it wasn't like a one-click solution, but it's like almost like I woke up after a few months of doing really serious work on this in Budapest. I think it was a little bit after Budapest, to be honest. And I was like, wait, I don't have that issue anymore. There's no block
Yeah.
around people who embody that. There's no like worry or looking over my shoulder if something's going to be okay or not.
Mm,
It's like, oh no, I'm fine as I am. I'm fine
yeah.
around this. And then that was actually the doorway to kind of integrate these things into my personality more. And it's funny because if that was me a few years ago, I would have thought those things would have made me soft or weak or made me effeminate, all that kind of other stuff. But it actually makes, if you're a more masculine polarity, it makes your polarity softer but much stronger and anti-fragile. And if you're
Mm,
someone who's in a more feminine polarity and you're integrating your masculine, it also makes the same thing for your natural feminine polarity. Makes it much softer. Like when I say softer, it means like less harsh, left less overbeat, like beating over the head, like less obvious. Like whenever something's like really
yeah.
absolutist, like this is me, like I'm in my divine feminine, or I'm in my divine masculine, you know? And that means I can't
Yeah.
show emotion and I have to wear black all the time and I'm always in presence and identifying with the witness and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. It's just so, and it's so fragile. It's like hard,
Yeah.
but it's very brittle. So you become like very not
Mm,
robust because the nature of this world is change and impermanence, which
yeah.
includes your expression as well, will change and is impermanent too.
Yeah.
And when you go through this process, it can feel maybe a little bit scary or a little bit different. I don't want to project the idea of scary
Mm,
onto people, but it just feels like very strange. But it's something where when you come out the other side of it, there's just situations which don't even affect you anymore, right? Like, can you like
yeah.
remember when we were at the start of Budapest? There were so many like issues and like social situations and people that would really like knock us. And we'd be like, oh,
Mm,
have to make sure that I put on a facade, right? And then as soon as you
yeah.
do this work and you realize, oh, this person, I might objectively actually not like this person, but there's something in them which I've either been demonizing or I'm putting on a pedestal. So when I integrate that, then it's one less, or sometimes more than one less thing that's going to bother me. It's going to rock the boat.
Yeah. Yeah. And seeing that all that extra meaning was just in your own head
Yeah.
in many ways, sometimes completely unrelated.
Yeah.
to what was actually happening. And I'm also wondering, what did that look like externally when you were meeting people compared to that more maybe fragile, trying to keep it all together, to coming into that real flexibility, that wholeness.
Damn. There's always like a danger, like if you're, I mean, obviously we're men, so we went a lot into the masculinity spaces. So we can only speak for that, really. But there's always that danger of when you do those practices, that you just become an emotionally constipated robot, basically, because of all the
Yeah.
their presence work and identifying with the witness. And also, there's such a seriousness with it as well. Have you noticed that? There's like a
Mm.
massive seriousness, like, oh, I got to be like this, I got to get the
Hmm.
presence working,
Yeah.
yeah, all that kind of thing. And it's useful for a time, but it's inherently flimsy. It's inherently fragile because the moment there, it's like the same person who just wakes up and does like a 5 hour morning routine. Like if your whole
Oh,
day is
yes.
built on that and there's just like a little snippet, a little chink in the armor, then that's everything ruined because you're
Yeah.
making a big deal out of it. It's like John Jones in the UFC is like famous for not really being that disciplined in a sense,
Mm.
like not being very organized. And I actually think that's his greatest mental strength because he used to describe it in terms of like he's like, oh, now I have an excuse to lose. Now, obviously
Yeah.
not to speak for him, but what I think is doing, it might is definitely doing that, but I think it's also doing the fact that, oh, like I'm just because I missed a clean eating one time, or I didn't go as hard in the training session, I'm not creating a storyline out of that. As someone who used to compete in
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu, world championship, Euros, what can happen is if when you're too tied down to a routine and something's gone wrong or you've had to miss something, then that routine that was supposed to give you strength and prepare you for the best now is your means of demise, is your means of like, being over, basically,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you've made it to be like the basis of all of your confidence, of all of your strength. So when you're doing these kind of practices and there's no like real instruction to be like, hey, like these practices are a practice. They're like a perfect, imperfect
Mm.
practice. This is here
Yeah.
to help you. They're not here to make you be who you are.
Yeah.
If there's not any of
And
that, then you become inherently fragile. Is what you're going to say.
yeah, just putting that confidence on the thing, or even the safety. I know even from my personal experience, often earlier when I was building my previous business and even a little bit of this one,
Mm,
hard work was equated with safety. If I had
mm,
like worked enough hours that day, then I was good and I'd probably be okay. It wasn't about the output. There was no logical, I'm going to work hard to get this result.
mm,
It was like, if I do enough in a day, then I'm kind of doing my part of this weird contract that's going to make me be safe.
yeah.
And that's kind of what emerges for me when you're sharing about John Jones, but even about your own jiu-jitsu career. Of I can imagine just this training becomes more than the actual training to develop skills and the objective thing that's emerging from it. And it becomes all the meaning that we place on it, the perfection that we need to achieve so that we're perfect on day one or the actual competition. And I imagine when you do that, and if you miss one session, I bet that's going through your head
Ah,
on
100%.
competition day.
Yeah.
And you're
You're
like,
like,
oh, it's that session.
yeah. You're like, I fucked it.
Must be
It's because of
that.
that. Like, as soon as things start
Yeah.
going wrong, you're like, oh, it's because I didn't do that one thing, you know?
Yeah. You know, Hamzat lost to Sean Strickland on the weekend.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
saw that. And a lot of people in the camp were saying it's because of overtraining. Because he
Mm,
apparently like kills it, like goes so hard to the point where he actually showed up on fight night and apparently was a shell of himself. This is what I hear. I don't actually know.
yeah.
But it kind of ties into that idea of putting it outside of you, either putting it on traits you're adopting, putting it on habits, putting it
Mm,
on actions you're doing,
yeah.
and that being tied to your self-worth,
It's a
confidence,
projection.
wholeness. Yeah,
You're
yeah,
projecting your
just a
self-worth
projection
and
of your own
confidence
power.
onto something else, you know? Doesn't mean we
Yeah,
don't use all those things. All those things are tools. But to become truly unflappable, like anti-fragile, robust in a way where you don't break, but you can bend in those kind of ways. Like the only way you can do that is to just have that in yourself and not
yeah,
rely on other people. Like obviously our big mentor, Pierre de Souza, it was always around the chains of validation. And I think that's actually quite applicable here. A lot of the
mm,
time, people shrink around other people and they can't speak up because there's still chains to the validation that other people are giving them. If other people give me good
yeah,
responses, right? This is in all situations, right? We learned it in a bit more of a cold approach situation, but obviously in all social situations, like, oh wait, like I'm not saying this thing because I want this other person to like what I'm about to say, because then I can
mm,
feel good about myself. Whereas if you just feel good
yeah,
about yourself anyway, then that calibration isn't the right word. That boundary isn't there anymore. Because you're like, well, if I already
yeah,
like myself, then I'm just going to say the thing that I like to say. Obviously, having compassion for other people too, and
yeah,
having empathy and making sure that they're having a good experience, making sure it's a win for me, it's a win for them, and it's a win for the environment as a whole or the world as a whole, depending on what kind of environment you're in. Um, you're doing that, but you're saying the thing that you want to say. That eliminates shrinking. But it's usually because
yeah,
there's a lack of something. That lack of something, let me know what comes up for your clients. It's usually value, worthiness, confidence, and kind of the opposite, inadequacy. Those are the four main, like the four horsemen of the words, how they verbalize it. Would that be the same for
mm.
you guys as well? Or you
Maybe I'd add love onto that. If
are
you ever
lovable,
notice that comes up too. Yeah,
interesting.
lovable.
Yeah. Yeah.
That definitely arises. Often I can arise as they need to be one of those four to be
Mm,
loved is something that I've,
mm, yeah.
but it's always interesting just to see that showing up and then to see the difference when it's re-owned. And it's just living in a completely different reality where it doesn't even make sense to question it. The idea of not saying something to try and sound good or to try and fit in or be liked just doesn't really arise.
That happened to me so
And then it's,
much back in the day.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And even now, as I'm sure as you grow, as I grow, there are moments where it's just so easy, so effortless, so relaxed.
Yeah.
And then there are moments where someone who is maybe very experienced or, a real pillar of their industry or really, really successful might trigger it in me. Oh, now I'm thinking about what to say. I
Mm,
haven't worked with this type of client before. Now I'm
yeah.
double checking if I'm doing it correct.
Yeah.
And then it's having to re-own that energy again of, oh, wait, it doesn't even matter here either.
No. Yeah.
Just let it be as it is.
Yeah. Really. Let it be as it is.
Just let it rip.